When you think about innovation, you might picture a lone scientist discovering a new breakthrough or developing a flashy new gadget. But research actually tells us that a true driver of innovation is diversity and collaboration. Essentially, discovery is a team sport. My name is Shannon Vassell, and I'm the Senior Program Officer for Progress, Impact, Access, and Accountability at ASM. And I'm, again, so happy that you're joining us this afternoon for our conversation around innovation and discovery. Today, I'll talk with Dr. Gretchen Diaz, Chair of ASM's PIA Committee, and Dr. Amy Reese, Chair of ASM's Subcommittee on the Status of Women in Microbiology, or SWIM, about how collaboration ignites innovation and scientific breakthroughs. Innovation is not just about novelty. Innovation is about increasing value and about making impact. And collaboration is about including people from different backgrounds, life experiences, different disciplines, perspectives, and even different countries. So I'd love to hear from you, Amy, about what are some of the ways that you deliberately practice and enable collaboration, maybe in your lab or your classroom or across institutions.
Thank you. So I have the opportunity to teach an elective with my students where we talk about the benefits. And so I think of collaborative work. I think that stopping to think about that, they read some literature pieces where they see that solving problems with a wide range of voices can really help ask better questions, analyze the data more fully. And that's often a different way for them to think about, especially when they think about other team players, somebody coming from history, somebody from psychology, especially as science students who are so used to my science classes. And so I think having conversations and being able to see how problem solving is better with a diverse group, I think that helps us see the importance of it.
And I love that example that you gave, Amy, that you're talking about coming from different disciplines, not just scientific disciplines, not just scientific tracks, but really across the academy or across your academic institutions. Gretchen, can you talk about also how you might drive innovation in your organization, CienciaPR?
Yeah, so at CienciaPR, we are a nonprofit organization. And it's in our DNA. Collaboration is in our DNA because we are a community, actually, a community of people interested in science and Puerto Rico. And that means a lot of different things, right? Or different reasons why you want to be part of the community. You could be a researcher, a scientist, you could be a student, you could be a teacher, or you could be also a member of the general public, right? But you have an interest in common. What we try to do to drive innovation is to facilitate that people convene, that people get together in different scenarios, and they can also be part of advancing science in Puerto Rico specifically and beyond through collaboration in general. So I think we have already many, many different examples and experiences, but I think the most important one is that to recognize that we have to include all voices that we can, right? And that we had to be intentional in the sense of including people means that they feel that they belong to a place. Diversity means more, oh, you have a different amount of people there, but not necessarily they are included. To be included, they have to belong to that. They have to feel that they have ownership, that they have something to contribute to. And that's what we try to do with all the programs that we do at CienciaPR.
Yeah. And I love how, Gretchen, you pointed out that it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about having diversity. Yes, we know the research tells us that diversity does drive innovation, but you have to go beyond that for inclusion and that collaboration. Yeah. I also appreciate how you talked about the community. Mm-hmm. Can you share some more about how you advance that community engagement as you're working in your work at CienciaPR or beyond?
Yeah, we actually have different examples. For example, there's a community of people that are members at CienciaPR, but our community extend beyond that. And there's different situations in Puerto Rico, for example, that we have the opportunity to, to help and to put the science in service because of the community is already organized. And I think that's what is important, that having that community already formed, already captive, makes the community to be ready for all the things that happen. And for example, when we have years ago Hurricane Maria, we have a lot of scientists and people already organized that help, in identify what are the needs, not only of the general community, but also the scientific community that was very, very bad affected through the hurricane. Same thing for the pandemic. I had to say that Puerto Rico was one of the jurisdictions that had the most earliest response to the pandemic. And also we have a very high rate of vaccinations and all these things because we have a scientific community that is very well organized. And Ciencia Puerto Rico also supported and facilitated that in collaboration with other organizations.
Yeah. Thanks so much for those examples. And, when I think about the roles that you are both in here at ASM, there's a lot of collaboration in the work that you do. Amy, again, I know you're the chair of SWIM, but you also participated in ASM's Microbial Leap program. I'm curious what you all learned about and talked about as far as drivers of collaboration, as well as maybe some barriers to collaboration.
Yeah, So the LEAP group came from a wide collection. There were folks from government, from academia, from industry. And so it was really helpful to hear the challenges and the opportunities that different individuals had as looking at where we are with science. And I think one of the first things that stood out to me is we had a reading thinking about, we often think of science as being gate-kept. And we had a nice reading on groundskeeping, and that switching away from gatekeeping and thinking about who we count as contributing to science and what is science and who gets to do science, but thinking about it more as taking care of the grounds. And I really liked that model, and I think that is a broader way to think about collaboration. And as you said before, beyond even just our sciences. And so that was something that really stuck with me from that group and has given me a new lens of how I'm looking at things.
Thank you so much for that. I love that appreciation of, like you said, the groundskeeping, that it's not about going top down. It's not about one group or one professional society gets to say these are the standards or these are the priorities, but especially within ASM's new strategic framework, it's about bringing more people into the fold and creating an environment, creating a platform for that collaboration. And as we think about where ASM is going next, we're thinking about global. We already have a significant global presence, but we want to be intentional about not just having the numbers again, but the inclusion globally. I wonder if you, Gretchen, you can share some additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's important because it goes to the diversity part, right? Science is really global. Scientists have their own countries and nationalities, but science is global. And both things are important. To recognize that science is something that it belongs to everybody and is a global thing, but also to recognize that the experiences and the context of every scientist matters too. And that combination, I think ASM have a good approach on, how to reach the global population and the global microbial sciences, but at the same time to be intentional in the sense of including people from all different perspectives and experiences. And I think I was already at the board when we started the new roadmap. And I remember discussing these things and how important was in the conversation to really understand this and how this can help ASM to advance microbial sciences, which is our mission.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And another part of our mission and vision is to really advance the microbial sciences to solve humanity's most pressing problems. I'm curious if you might share some examples of innovative discoveries that have come from collaborative teams. Amy, did you want to share one?
Well, I know we talked about this before as being, that's really what happened with the COVID pandemic. So many, and we learned just how much from even all the years of coronavirus work before and how that pulling from the basic science, but now you have industry, you have funding sources being pulled together and researchers collaborating. And that's not the first time that's happened. That certainly is how, when we looked at the polio outbreak, there were some steps forward and step backwards with the polio vaccines, but it was a huge collaborative that also had a whole lot from the community as well, who were so desperate for solutions that they were involved. So unfortunately, diseases bring us together. But that's certainly, I think we've made a lot of strides in collaborating very quickly, certainly in that sense.
Yeah, I want to point out something that maybe some people in the audience don't know, and is that Puerto Rico was the first place in the world to achieve the elimination of the transmission of HIV and syphilis viruses from mother to baby. Okay, and that was achieved because of collaboration between researchers, the Department of Health in Puerto Rico, and also the medical community. And it was also possible because of a woman in science that was actually pregnant herself at the moment that she was doing the research. And what happened with that is that we were able to establish a very robust preventive program that was sustained and that was successful. And then at the same time, years later, it was in Cuba, it was in Jamaica, so the Caribbean lead in great part those efforts those years. But that's an example that I wanted to bring out because it shows collaboration, but it also shows the importance of diversity and the opportunity of, imagine that we don't have that woman, pregnant woman, doing science at that moment. Right? So that is a good example of both things. And I think it's a great story of a breakthrough, that we were able to accomplish because of collaboration.
I was just thinking of the connections that we have with science. Earlier this morning, we had the speaker talking about indigenous science and doing what's meaningful to you. Talking about what's meaningful to you, right? And what energy that brings to the science that we do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, Gretchen, you brought up the accessibility of being able for not only a woman serving in science and being in research, but also she was pregnant. So there had to be a level of making sure that there was a time that if you were pregnant, you could not, continue to work, for example. But that accessibility and that inclusion was so key. Another thing that I think about is that, we talked about inclusion and collaboration across disciplines, across the globe, but across sectors is also important. Thinking about inclusion, as you said, from government to industry to academia, as well as nonprofits. So I'm curious if you have any additional thoughts about that cross-sector collaboration.
I think we are always thinking about our swim membership and is it representative of the ASM composition? And if it's not, how do we address that? I know that the membership committee has looked at the work of Donna Ginther and her team to think about the roles of microbiology and the jobs and how are we reaching where the jobs are and where potential ASM members might be, because I think that really does help us form teams that are then ready to act in any direction. And so I think ASM is really leading in that, and SWIM certainly tries to do that within the committee and the programming that we offer from it.
Yeah, I think in a similar way for the PR committee, and also when we did the microbiology program, we were always intentional in terms of the profiles and the people that we are bringing to the committee, not only to have an expertise or something to contribute, but they also are somehow representative of our membership or the different sectors that are present at ASM. So I think that's one good example. Another example from my own experience at CienciaPR is that we have different programs. For example, we have a program for girls in STEM. And that program, as you know, it's not a new thing, right, that we need more women in STEM, of course. But in Puerto Rico, if you don't know, we don't have that gap. We actually have a lot of women in STEM in Puerto Rico. But why we are still doing this kind of programs? Well, because if you go beyond on the career, on retention, if you go to leadership positions, then you see a gap. Okay, so what we try to do with these middle school girls is to show them and to model leadership from early ages, right? And to do that, we use a lot of collaborations between mentors, from different sectors, from government, from industry, from the academia. So these girls can, see role models in different sectors and learn how to navigate what they will see in the future, right? And I think it is important not to put all the weight on them. We had also systematic changes that we had to make, but I think it is still important to give them the tools to navigate and to be resilient to what they will see in the future.
Yeah. And as ASM is standing up our new scientific units, I'm curious on your thoughts on how that will also shape more inclusion within the field, more collaboration, and especially that collaboration across those scientific units.
Well, and I think that's what's so special about meeting and being able to come together. Many are far apart. Actually, I'm at a small liberal arts college where, my researcher 2 doors down does something very different. That's an unusual thing because in most places, he'd be in another department. So I think that these opportunities of all the subcommittees and the programming and options with ASM, and I think the reorganization gives us a chance to think about things differently and a chance to re-engage. I think engaging with the public has always been important. It used to be more of a hobby for folks, and now it's essential. And so I think thinking about things differently and rearranging helps us think about community members in that conversation and helping us make our science accessible and easier to understand.
Actually, I think this is a good example of innovating from in to out, right? Like the own organization, I think, is putting things on the front and leading change, right? And I feel excited actually about seeing the dynamics that we will have with this new form of organized people, because this is actually more similar to real life, right? How things goes is how we use them, how we see them, the contributions of the science that we are doing. How do we use in practice? In which areas is environmental? Is it on human health or what? I think I'm very, very excited about it, but also I would like to see, I think, different sectors that maybe it's a great opportunity for ASM to grow, because we can put ASM in many places that it was not before. Maybe never think about it. For example, energy, or, microbes are everywhere. We know that, but not everybody knows, right? So now with this structure, I think we are open that door of opportunities to bring other people also that will feel identified because of this, but they are not necessarily microbiologists, but they are great collaborators that we will need to work with.
Yeah, I love how you said that, Gretchen, that microbes are everywhere. I watch a science show with my 6-year-old, and the episode was showing microbes at the bottom of the ocean. And so he was talking about microbes one day, and he said, yeah, they're at the bottom of the ocean. I said, no, they're everywhere. And he said, everywhere? I was like, yeah. And so he starts running around the house. Microbes are everywhere. But like you said, microbes are everywhere. And because of that, again, they have the power to change our world if we collaborate to do so. And as you mentioned, as the excitement that we have around the new scientific units, and even, as you said, Amy, that our meetings are such a place to do that. Well, next year's meeting will be structured around our new scientific units. So it is a very exciting time. And so thinking about the future, I'm curious, if you envision more collaboration within our field, what would that look like in 1 year or maybe even 5 years? If we have more collaboration, if we have more inclusion, if we have more diversity, what would that mean for microbiology in the future?
Should I?
You should, yes.
Still thinking. I think this is happening already, but I feel that it will increase more. I see collaborations that sometimes we never think about, even with arts, with so many areas that at some point will help us to reshape the way we think about microbes and the use of microbes or the benefits or the diseases or everything. I see an opportunity to collaborate with with people in humanities. There's so many ethics and stuff that is raising, right? Questions that we have that are fundamental for the progression of the microbial sciences in general and the sciences in general. And I see, and I would like to see more of those type of collaborations. I love to talk to people in arts, for example, about the scientific method and how they use the scientific method for arts and they don't know. And it's true. And I think we have to be more aware of those things and find those intersections, those common points. And I feel that if we do that, we will see so many bright things happening in the future. So that's my dream, what I'm dreaming about.
That makes me think of a couple of different things. One is, think of how much more interesting our images would be if we collaborated in that way, right? You describe something and now there's this really interpretive figure that, or piece of art that helps us think about it. So I thought of that in hearing your answer. I was thinking how it would be so nice if you could just connect with asking, like so often we don't reach out and ask a question or get feedback or say, what do you think about this? We're so worried about it being our thing, right? And any system that helps it make it easier. Well, what do you think about that? And when you were saying microbes were everywhere, it made me think of some of our best ambassadors are our non-scientists. If you have not read Tuberculosis is Everything by John Green, he's a historian and a writer, but that's going to get people to pay attention and to think. And I learned science things in there. But so that collaboration and passion with members of the public who realize the value of that and how can we reach my circle and your circle because we're speaking a more common language. And the questions that are asked of us, that when we answer them with analogies and things that make our science less scary and more understandable, I think that will help everyone follow along. So I really love the very broad cross-discipline collaborations.
Yeah, that makes me think about the opening session, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, where it was the science fiction novelist, and who was with the astronaut and thinking, like you said, bringing in disciplines beyond science. And also, when you think about STEM, how can we connect with technology, engineers, mathematicians, as we're working on our science. Yeah, I love that. So again, just final question is, how do you envision ASM's framework? Any additional thoughts in driving innovation and collaboration?
Something that I know that we are being intentional is that we want also to highlight and empower all phases in microbial sciences. And we have our rock stars of science, but we have many people that are not visible right now that are doing great job. And it is important for our goals that they are also highlighted, that they are also known, their work, their contributions. And I know that part of our new roadmap is having that in mind intentionally. And sometimes we take it for granted, but it's not. It's not. The truth is that there are a lot of work, group work, also not only individual work that is not well recognized, and that if we want to advance the field, we need to include them also in that portfolio, right? In that history of microbial sciences. And I know that ASM is taking their steps on being more intentional on that, and I'm really pleased about that because it's also actually something in common with CienciaPR, because our organization tries always to highlight the Puerto Rican and Latino sciences that are not necessarily visible and give them a scenario. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. I think helping participants and potential participants recognize that proposing a session is something anyone can do. You don't have to be some big researcher that's already won awards. You can be interested in something and put that forth. You're going to get support, and if it continues. And I think that more folks need to know you can be part of designing the science and what we do here. If it's not here and you miss it, propose a session.
Yes, exactly. Being part of the science, being part of not just what we do here at ASM, but ASM being part of what is happening within the sciences, within the microbial sciences, and really coming together to connect various projects, various initiatives. So I really want to close with just encouraging us ourselves across ASM and really across our whole community to consider where you work and where you study and where you research, and think about how can you consciously move beyond your discipline, your track, your sector, and even your country, and support inclusive collaboration and diverse collaboration. Again, collaboration in all fields, but especially in science, is not optional, it's essential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.